Smith Show starts right now.
To hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Here with you as I love to be every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News. 250-plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you. Plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80. Plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and your car insurance. Plus, tune in for an NL East rivalry this Sunday as the New York Mets host the Atlanta Braves, presented by Indeed. Coverage of Sunday Night Baseball begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, and at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite things to do on this radio show is to have my next guest on the line. I absolutely love talking to him. He's done an outstanding job for us all year long, as he has for the last several years, being here at ESPN, still doing an outstanding job right now, working overtime, no doubt. The one and only Brian Windhorst is on with yours truly right now. What's going on, Wendy? How you doing, man?
Hey, Stephen A. We're in it now, man. There's stuff flying all over the place. Free agency is starting. That's all I'm going to say.
You know that, and obviously I got calls that I have no doubt you have received as well, and that is that Kawhi Leonard is considering the Los Angeles Lakers. For so long, we've just thought it was the Raptors, it's the Clippers. Now the Lakers are in the mix. Tell us what you're hearing. Tell us what you think about what you're hearing.
Well, so it goes against the what I know about Kawhi, but I always say you can't judge free agency decisions until we get to this moment. It's like an NBA game. It doesn't matter what the score is in the second quarter. It matters what the score is at the end. And the Lakers have opened up a compelling situation. And not only that, Stephen A., but there are guys out there who are lining up to join the Lakers, even if they're on minimum contracts. Guys want to join this team. They want to be a part of this team. There's a momentum there. They are hoping that they can do it. From what I understand, the Lakers basically want Kawhi or Kyrie, and if they can't get either of those two guys, then they'll look to break up their space. But they're going to go for those premium guys right out of the gate. They want to secure meetings with them. They want to. LeBron and AD are ready to recruit. They're ready to be there in person if they need to be. If they can't be there in person, they'll do it however they're going to do it. But that is, where they are. And I have a hard time believing it, Stephen A., but I saw what you said this morning, and I do not disagree with it, that it is a viable option. And Toronto, one of the things I'm watching really closely is if Toronto starts canvassing the league to see if they need to make a move to sweeten the pot. Masai Ujiri doesn't feel that way, but that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on if there's any rumblings in Toronto if they start to get nervous.
Well, let me ask you this question, Wendy. How could you possibly sweeten the pot anymore if you're Toronto? You're the reigning defending NBA champion. This guy led the way as your superstar and number one option. He's deified in Toronto, damn near the entire country. And if he were to come back, you'd be the favorites to come out of the East again. What more could Masai Ujiri possibly do in your estimation?
That's a conversation that Masai and his lieutenant Bobby Webster are probably having right now, if they need to do something. Listening to Masai talk earlier this week, he seemed very content with where he was at. Why wouldn't you be content? They're at the top of the mountain right now. They should enjoy it. The thing about Kawhi, Stephen A., and you know this as well as anybody, but he has now kind of reached that LeBron level. And what I mean by that is, yes, if he goes back to the Raptors, they are going to be the favorites to win the championship. But if he goes to the Clippers might end up being one of the favorites to win the championship. He goes to the Lakers, they very likely would be the favorites to win the championship. Just saying that you're going to have a good team around him is not that incentivizing because he knows he carries that balance of power wherever he goes.
How important would the additional $50 million or the loss in $50 million be if he chose to leave Toronto for L.A., particularly considering the fact that he had already lost $30 million by going from San Antonio to Toronto? So you're talking about
That's
$80
right.
million in the last year and a half. What about that?
That's right. It's very difficult to read his priorities. His priorities was not to get the additional money in San Antonio to get the Supermax. So if he's already left that money on the table, how much is he willing to leave on the table? He may be willing to leave more. To me, I would think at this point, as a two-time champion, two-time finals MVP, no doubt that he's at the top of his craft, in his mid-20s, in the middle of his prime, with concerns about his health, and who obviously wasn't happy eventually in San Antonio and felt so unhappy that he wanted to trade, that happiness would be his number one priority. Where can he go where he will be most happy? The Raptors may say, it's here. We are a winning team. We are a great organization. We have a tremendous training staff, one of the best training staffs in the league. We know how to take care of you. The entire country loves you. But he may look at Southern California and say, that's home, and that's where my happiness is going to be, and I can be just as much of a contender there. And if happiness trumps money, as it certainly did in San Antonio, that may be a factor. What makes Kawhi happy? Teams have spent the last year trying to figure that question out. What makes Kawhi happy? What appeals to him most? That's what they're going to be trying to sell to him when they meet with him over the weekend.
Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Some people have looked at Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, particularly in light of the chaos that ravaged that franchise or just as recently as a few weeks ago. And they say, you know what, they've made amends. They've got Anthony Davis. They've got LeBron James. They could potentially be on the verge of getting Kawhi Leonard. My question to you would be this. How do you explain to my listeners how this differs from the situation in Miami? My recollection states Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh all took less money just so Pat Riley could build a roster for them. In the case of Anthony Davis with LeBron James, you don't necessarily have that luxury if you go out there and you get Kawhi Leonard or Kyrie Irving. You basically have enough room to get about 8 to 10 players on minimum deals. Talk to me about that for a second.
Yeah, so look, this is a tough thing because I do think that there was chaos. I do think that the Lakers bumbled their way through the last season. I do think that they overpaid for Anthony Davis. I do think that they fixed the loophole in the Anthony Davis trade by having to give away 3 more players and a draft pick. And I know that if that leads to getting Kawhi Leonard, that it won't matter, just like it didn't matter in 2010 when the Heat reduced themselves all the way down to one player. They had one single player. You think the Lakers are funny with the 3-man team right now? They had the Heat had one player in 2010 when they started free agency. That was Mario Chalmers. Okay, I think it's been a sloppy process. I think they've screwed up. I think that their long-term planning was in error. I think that they've given away assets that they're eventually going to need to keep this team relevant in the next 6 months to 3 years. But at the end of the day, we judge the Heat on the fact that they emerged with one of the great big threes in NBA history, and that they were able to surround them with talent that took them to 4 straight finals and won 2 titles. And ultimately, Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg and Eric Spoelstra were praised for doing that. So I have to look at what Rob Pelinka has done here. He has got 2 superstars. He's in the zone on getting a third. Maybe he gets them, maybe he doesn't. And I have to recognize that if, whatever the means were to get to this end, I have to say he's at this end. I'm skeptical of the big decisions that have gone forward because of the way they've gotten here. And I think that they've ridden the popularity of Los Angeles and the Laker brand to make it happen. But the Heat, who I praised dramatically for a decade now, rode the city of Miami and their no state income tax and their advantages as well. So I can't praise one and not praise the other. So here Rob Pelinka is on the cusp of one of the great coups in general managing recent history. And you must say, no matter how he got there, he's done what has been his mandate.
The Los Angeles Lakers haven't made the playoffs since 2013. Yet the Clippers obviously have still been their fair weather stepchild. They won 48 games this year. They put forth a valiant effort in the first round of the playoffs against the Golden State Warriors. They made themselves into an attractive commodity, not just by winning games, but how ultimately everything materialized because they've elevated themselves to a first-class organization. You know this just as well, if not better than me. Steve Ballmer, Jerry West, Doc Rivers, the three people who would be in the room to talk to Kawhi Leonard, of course. Then you got Lawrence Frank and his staff as well. If the Los Angeles Clippers were to miss out on getting Kawhi Leonard, especially if it's to the Los Angeles Lakers, how devastating of a blow would this be to everything they aspired for?
It'd be like acing your SAT and then losing out to your last spot at Harvard Business School to the good-looking guy from the blue blood family. That's what it would be like, because the Clippers have a tremendous coaching staff. They have a tremendous front office, as you said. They have a great training staff. They have a spectacular new facility. They have the richest owner in all of sports. You look at their moves over the last 18 to 24 months, every single move has been pitch perfect. Their analytics staff is fantastic. Their development teams are fantastic. They've developed their players. They've made smart signings. They've made all the maneuvers. They play in the same city. You play in the exact same floor in the same hallway. You can live in the same house, looking at the same sun, looking at the same ocean. They have done everything that they have possibly could to flip around the 40-year history that the Lakers were the superstars and the Clippers were on Skid Row. They have done everything you possibly could to do that. There is no question which organization has demonstrated the better competence and the overall better infrastructure. But the Lakers are the Lakers. They have those stars on the center of the court. They have those banners. They have those jerseys. They have the history. They have Jack Nicholson sitting courtside. They have all the things that unlock it. LeBron is filming Space Jam 2 with Anthony Davis as we speak in Los Angeles. That is an incredible brand to overcome, and it's hard to fathom, but it could potentially be the reality. They're fighting it, but that's what they're fighting.
I'm almost to the point, Brian Windhorst. I believe if the Clippers end up empty-handed, I'd support Steve Ballmer moving the team. And I know he's trying to build his own arena within the next 5 years across town near Inglewood or whatever. I wouldn't mind him leaving the state, for crying out loud, because I'm telling you right now, if the Los Angeles Lakers have LeBron James, AD, and Kawhi Leonard, they're going to be dominant for the foreseeable future. I don't think there's any question about that. And that's going to have you looking at the Clippers as exactly who they are right now, which is that fair-weather stepchild. I don't know if they could take much more of that, particularly when you consider that Jerry West and Doc Rivers is there, and you've got the richest owner in sports, and it still didn't make that difference.
And what I'm hoping for is that Kawhi, if he does go to L.A., does go to the Clippers, because then you would have the capital of basketball being Staples Center. You'd have, 80 very relevant games played during the regular season and dozens more in the postseason.
Correct.
And I can just envision coming out at LA Live and seeing LeBron on one building, AD on another building, Kawhi on a third building, New Balance ads fighting with Nike ads. Being able to go to LA for a weekend and see 4 games with Kawhi, LeBron, and AD and all of them, for these Laker Clippers games to be circled on the calendar and be Christmas Day games in Los Angeles and things of this nature. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see 2 vibrant teams in the most vibrant basketball market that we have. I'd actually like to see that in New York too. I'd like to see the Nets and the Knicks doing the same thing, but in LA, where they share the same building, that I think would be great for the league. But and I still, everything that I know about Kawhi, Stephen A., is indeed that he isn't a super team guy. He's a breaker of super teams. He broke the Heat with the Spurs in 2014. He finished off the Warriors, albeit I know they were damaged, but he finished them off with MVP performance in these finals. That Game 3 and Game 4, where they grabbed the series by the throat, was before Durant and Klay got hurt. I mean, Durant was out, but it was before the Durant injury. That was him at his finest. To me, he is the super team killer. I want to see him continue to fight against the super team in his own building. But again, the first Laker game I went to as a 25-year-old, first-year beat writer, raw right out of the finishing school, I was blown away. Now, granted, it was the Shaq Kobe Lakers, and it was at their prime, and they were champions. But I will never forget that feeling. I get it. I can't. If he goes
Brian,
there, I'm not going to look at him and say I don't get it.
You and I can both speak to this because we're in the business, and obviously we've covered a lot of games at the Staples Center. The Staples Center, the very same building, the very same basketball court. Am I lying when I say the environment is night and day when there's a Laker game compared to a Clippers game? Night and day.
Stephen A., they use actually different lights, and I've been in the arena.
I know.
Where the Clippers have played an afternoon game and the Lakers are playing a night game, and they actually switch the lights in one moment. And in that moment that they switch the lighting, you honestly feel like you've been transported. And I know that if you haven't experienced it, you probably think that we're full of it. But it's just different being in there for the Laker game and the organ and the Lawrence Tanter, the PA announcer, when he announces that the Laker girls are coming out. I mean, the intro, I understand the intoxication. I don't see Kawhi Leonard as somebody who feeds into that. But if Woj comes out with a story on Tuesday that says he's picking the Lakers, I am not going to faint. I would be surprised, but I am not going to faint.
Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. And here's the thing. If that were to happen, the next name I bring up, Wendy, is Kevin Durant. Because if you're Kevin Durant, and I'm hearing he's not making the decision yet, it's not definitive, he still doesn't know what he's going to do. He's going to talk to the New York Knicks. He's going to meet with them. Obviously, he's going to talk to Brooklyn. We don't know who else he's going to talk to. And Bob Myers will be there to offer him the 5-year, $221 million Supermax. The 2nd to 6 p.m. Deadline strikes on Sunday evening. My thing is this, Wendy. If you're Kevin Durant, you might have thought about going to New York, whether it's the Knicks or the Nets. But if Kawhi decides to go to the Lakers, don't you have to think about who you're going to be competing against if you want another chip? And couldn't that potentially influence you to go back to Golden State, since your best chance at knocking those boys off in L.A., that three-headed monster, if that were to be the case, is you re-teaming up with Klay and Steph and Draymond? Doesn't KD have to rethink things if Kawhi decides to go to the Lakers?
Stephen A., you said it, I believe it was yesterday. My days are running together. I've heard the same thing about the Knicks being concerned about offering him the max. And remember, the Knicks, one of the reasons why the Knicks traded Porzingis was because they were worried about his future health situation. And they didn't want to give him the max contract. Now, we're going to see how that works out, because Porzingis is going to have a max by Sunday night with Dallas. And if he turns into a perennial all-star and goes into Madison Square Garden every year and pounds the Knicks for the next 8 years, it's not going to look so good. But the Knicks were worried about Porzingis. I've heard the same thing that you've heard, that the Knicks are worried about Durant's recovery from that Achilles, and that they want to see the medical records, and they want to hear how that surgery went. It's not an automatic offering of a max. And the Warriors obviously know, and they're ready to offer it, from what I understand. I assume Brooklyn is ready to offer it. And maybe at the end of the day, the Knicks will offer it too. I'm just saying the Knicks are being cautious. If you hear that there's some doubt about whether you can recover if you're Kevin Durant, and here come the Warriors with this offer of an extra $57 million, saying, whatever happened in the past, Kevin, we want to show 100% faith in you now. And that you're no longer going to be considered a mercenary, as he has been considered by many for going there. But instead, we want to completely flip the script on who we are. We want to nurture you back to health, and we want to go fight the new Giants in L.A. It changes the narrative of his career. Now, I don't know how important it is to him. Maybe it's more important to him to go establish something new. Maybe it's more important to him to go play with his apparently close friend Kyrie Irving. They've gotten closer, I guess, over the last year.
Yes.
Maybe that's more important to him, but that's certainly got to be something he's got to be looking at.
Well, the reason why I say he's got to be looking at, because, listen, Wendy, first of all, KD healthy with Kyrie, as much as I believe in KD, and you know I do, they ain't beating LeBron, AD, and Kawhi. So if the three of them team up in L.A., To me, if I'm KD, looking at not next season because he's not going to be fully ready, we know that, looking at the next 3 to 4 years of my career, I got to give myself the best opportunity to win a championship and to compete with those monsters. And it ain't with Kyrie in Brooklyn. That's my thinking. What is yours?
Plus load management, right? Like this is what Kyrie made it through in Toronto this year. He played 60 games or whatever it was, 62 games.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, Kawhi. If those three come together with the Lakers, that's load management perfect. LeBron can take games off. Kawhi can take games off. Anthony Davis can take games off. They can all play 65, 68 games and still play together in 50 or so of them because they can protect themselves through the year. So if you're Kevin Durant and you're coming back from a terrible injury, you maybe come back to a team where you can afford to take 15 to 18 games off to let yourself get healthy. You want a deep team. And that, I wonder how much that plays into Kawhi. Kawhi was probably the most effusive he was about his whole situation this entire year was how the Raptors took care of him and made sure he was as healthy as possible getting into that postseason. That's going to be a priority for him. That may be a priority for Durant. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the team that they build in Brooklyn will be able to pull it off. But, that's something that you're going to consider if you're coming off of a major injury. And even Kawhi, who missed basically a season because of injury.
Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Just a couple more questions before I let you get on out of here. Houston with Jimmy Butler. They're willing, apparently, to unload a Clint Capella and Eric Gordon to facilitate bringing Jimmy Butler from Philadelphia, working out a deal, 4-year deal where he ends up signing with Houston. He's not allowed to get a max deal for 5 years from Houston or anybody else. Only the 76ers could give him that. They're reluctant to give him the 5 years. Obviously cool with giving him 4. If you are Jimmy Butler, where do you want to be, Philly or Houston? And if you're Philadelphia, where do you want him? Are you willing to send him to Houston for Capella or Gordon, or do you want to keep him? Where do you lie with all of that?
If the Houston Rockets are honestly willing to trade 4 first-round picks like they were for Jimmy Butler over the summer, over the season, over the winter, I think there's a way that they could acquire another player that would be comparable to Jimmy, start offering that deal elsewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be with Jimmy, and it could be somebody under contract. I question whether Jimmy is the only guy they're going after. That's number one. Number two, if the Rockets are making this move and looking around to actually do this, if this is something Daryl Morey is doing and not just sort of putting on a show to make it look like he's doing, don't you think that Jimmy Butler doesn't have a 5-year max offer in his pocket? If he has a 5-year max offer in his pocket with Philly, why would there be vibes out there that he may want to go somewhere else? Because the Miami Heat are sniffing around too. The Miami Heat would love to figure out a way. I don't think they have the ammunition, but the Miami Heat would like to do it too. And there's even some word out there that Jimmy would like the Lakers to take a look at him. I have heard that the Lakers want Kawhi or Kyrie. That's where their max money is going to go. I have not heard Jimmy, but
your info is accurate. Your info is accurate. They want Kawhi or Kyrie, or they're going to go in a different direction, probably D'Angelo Russell.
But I've heard that Jimmy has some interest in getting the Lakers' attention. So I wonder if he's got that 5-year offer.
He's not getting it.
Maybe he does. So that's the thing. That to me is I think Philadelphia is the team that can throw us the biggest curveball. I heard this week that Philadelphia is leaving its options open for Al Horford, which leads me to believe that they may move on from Tobias Harris, and they may look to try to bring Al Horford in to pair him up alongside maybe Jimmy Butler. But to me, if Jimmy is truly on the open market, it means he doesn't have a 5-year offer. And that, to me, is an interesting situation for Philadelphia.
It is an interesting situation. I think personally Dallas is going to go after Al Horford, and he may end up going there. But Philly definitely is an option. You got a really, really good point there. No question. Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So with all of this being said, at the end of the day, if I had to put you on the spot and I had to say to you, Wendy, where's Kawhi Leonard going to end up? What are you saying?
I just think it's L.A. Clippers, Toronto right on their heels, and the Lakers is a late entrant. Just what I know about Kawhi, I just don't see him playing with LeBron and Durant. But I have to acknowledge it's a real thing. I have to acknowledge it.
Last but not least, on a totally different level, because the Washington Wizards are completely irrelevant, would you mind telling me what the hell is going on with them? Masai Ujiri obviously is not going there. He elected to stay in Toronto. Tommy Shepard, I believe he was probably going to get the job. For all I know, he probably does have it because I ain't paying too much attention to what the hell's going on there. But I don't understand why Troy Weaver, who's worked under Sam Presti for years, done a pretty damn good job at Oklahoma City, hasn't been hired by them either. What can you tell us, if anything at all, about the Washington Wizards?
They wanted all these guys who were under contract. They had interest in Tim Connolly. He gets an extension. He actually came out there, interviewed. He got an extension. I heard they had some interest in Neil O'Shea with the Blazers. Neil O'Shea got an extension 2 days after the end of the season. Never became a thing. They obviously had interest in Masai Ujiri. Masai, or whatever you want to believe, that didn't go down. They had big dreams. They had really huge dreams. Now, Tommy Shepard has been in this league for decades, and he's highly respected. But they need to make some big decisions. They drafted a guy who they hadn't worked out and hadn't interviewed, and now they should be making a decision on Bradley Beal. There are going to be teams that missed out on their free agents. Like, what if the Houston Rockets call and offer 3 or 4 first-round picks for Bradley Beal?
That's right.
Who is making the decision
make the call
about where that franchise is going? And these are really important days for the Washington Wizards. And they let Ernie Grenfell go before the end of the regular season to prepare to hire a GM. They hired a consultant who, looked over the organization for 30 days and made all these recommendations. Tommy Shepard might end up being a great general manager. John Horst, the same thing happened in Milwaukee a few years ago. It was a mess of a search, and they settled on this guy who was in their organization, John Horst. He's executive of the year. It could work out, but I just think with the stakes as high as they are, I'm stunned they have not had more clarity.
Wendy, great job as always. I'll be watching you. On me, I'll probably be on air with you at some point over the weekend, buddy. Always appreciate you, my man. We'll talk soon.
Stephen A., buckle up. These next 5-6 days, oh, my goodness.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Yeah, my schedule's already off.